Far across the Pacific, an American fleet was approaching a small Japanese island. The island was Okinawa. What was about to happen would become one of the largest and bloodiest battles of the Pacific War. Thousands of American soldiers were moving toward the beaches. Behind them were warships, landing craft, tanks, aircraft, and an enormous military force. Ahead of them was an island they knew very little about. The most dangerous part of Okinawa was not always visible. Much of the fighting would take place among hills, ruins, and inside caves beneath the ground. The battle would last for 82 days. And its consequences would last far longer. To understand why this happened, we first have to understand Okinawa's location. Okinawa lies far south of Japan's main islands, between Japan, China, and the wider Pacific. For the United States, Okinawa could provide airfields, ports, and a base close to the Japanese mainland. It was a crucial step toward the final stage of the war. Before sunrise, the waters around Okinawa were filled with ships. Then, as morning came, the invasion began. On April 1st, American forces landed on the western coast of Okinawa. Waves of soldiers moved inland from the beaches. Men carried weapons and equipment. Vehicles followed behind them. The scale of the operation was enormous. Armored vehicles pushed forward. Patrols moved ahead to search the terrain. The American forces were expecting the Japanese defenders to attack. But something was unexpected. The landing beaches were not met with the massive resistance that many soldiers had anticipated. The Americans were able to move inland surprisingly quickly. So why didn't the Japanese defend the beaches? The answer would only become clear as the Americans moved farther south. The real battle was waiting for them deeper inside the island. The Japanese defenders had prepared for a different kind of battle. Instead of trying to stop the invasion on the beaches, they planned to make the Americans fight for every hill and every position. Okinawa's natural landscape offered something extremely valuable to the defenders. Caves and underground positions could hide soldiers from view and protect them from bombardment. The island itself could become a fortress. And as the American advance continued, one location became increasingly important. The ancient city of Shuri. If the Americans could break through Shuri, the Japanese defensive line would begin to collapse. For centuries, this had been the political and cultural heart of the Ryukyu Kingdom. In 1945, it became the center of a devastating battle. American forces fought their way toward the city. The closer they came to Shuri, the harder the fighting became. Every advance came at a cost. The war reached a place that had existed long before either army arrived. The skyline of Shuri was now dominated by military positions. Then the landscape began to disappear beneath the destruction. Buildings were damaged. Infrastructure was destroyed. And the city itself was being transformed by the battle. Places that had once been ordinary parts of everyday life became military targets. The boundary between a city and a battlefield had disappeared. And then there was Shuri Castle. Once a symbol of the Ryukyuan past, it now stood amid the destruction of war. The battle was destroying more than military positions. It was destroying the landscape of Okinawa itself. But the destruction above ground tells only part of the story. Beneath the hills and fields, another story was unfolding. Caves and underground shelters became places of refuge. For soldiers, they were defensive positions. For civilians, they could be the only place where they could hide. Families entered these dark spaces carrying whatever they could. They waited underground while explosions shook the world above them. There was no clear line between the battlefield and the place where civilians lived. The war had reached their homes. And now, their homes had become part of the battlefield. Civilians were caught in the fighting across the island. Many sought shelter in caves, tunnels, and other underground positions. American forces continued their advance towards southern Okinawa. Tanks and infantry moved together through the battlefield. Japanese forces had concentrated their main defensive positions in the south. The fighting therefore became increasingly concentrated there. Progress was slow. Japanese positions were defended from fortified hills, ridges, caves, and tunnels. American forces relied heavily on artillery, armor, infantry, and naval gunfire. On May 29, American forces captured Shuri. Japanese forces withdrew farther south toward the Kiin Peninsula. The battlefield was becoming smaller, while the number of civilians caught inside it remained large. The final phase of the battle had begun. The Battle of Okinawa was not fought only between military forces. The civilian population was also caught in the battle. Many civilians were evacuated or taken into areas controlled by American forces as the front moved south. American military units established collection points and camps for civilians. Food, water, and medical assistance were provided. As Japanese soldiers were captured, they were disarmed and taken into American custody. Wounded prisoners could also receive medical treatment. But the fighting was still continuing in the south. And the final Japanese defensive positions had not yet fallen. Japanese units were losing their defensive positions and withdrawing toward the final lines of resistance. Thousands of Japanese soldiers were killed, wounded, or captured during the campaign. American forces also suffered heavy casualties. Japanese soldiers began surrendering in increasing numbers as their positions collapsed. The last organized fighting continued into June. On June 22, the Battle of Okinawa was declared over. The Japanese commander, Lieutenant General Mitsuru Ushijima, died on June 22. The American commander, Lieutenant General Simon Buckner, had been killed 4 days earlier. After 82 days of fighting, organized resistance on Okinawa had ended. But the human cost was enormous. After the battle, Okinawa entered a new period under American military administration. Over the following decades, its cities and communities were rebuilt. Shuri Castle has been rebuilt and remains one of Okinawa's most important historical symbols. The island cities have grown, and everyday life has returned. The Battle of Okinawa ended on June 22, 1945. But its history remains part of Okinawa today. The battle is over. The memory remains.